Hello everybody, this is Pun the Frugal Streamer, and I'm actually sitting in the middle of Hurricane Dorian right now, so I figured it was a good time to make a recording settings video for OBS, and now we will use Streamlabs OBS for this demo, but I think it's one of the more important topics we can talk about when using OBS for content creation. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so let's talk about recording. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible, and I'm going to go through the settings that I think you really need to know about. Now, this is going to apply to both Streamlabs OBS and OBS Studio. They are both the same. There's really no differences other than the actual look of the UI itself. All right, so let's get into the recording by going, and you click for Streamlabs OBS, we're down here, you click the settings cog or gear, then you go here to output and go to recording. You got simple and advanced. Obviously I want you to use advanced. It just gives you more flexibility, more control of your audio and video. Okay, so here you have the standard type. You can set your record path on your hard drive wherever you want to store your videos by hitting the browse button and then selecting a folder. You can generate the file name without a space. This is good for, other formats, other OSs that don't recognize file spaces in the name. Recording format, you got a couple different options here. So let's talk about the main ones that you could use. I'm not going to talk about TS or M3U8 because you're not going to use those. Okay. Most people will use one of these three here, but FLV possibly. So Flash Video is, of course, it does recording. The problem with Flash Video is that it does not allow multi-track audio. So that's why I don't think most people are going to even recommend using this one, especially now Streamlabs OBS supports multi-track audio. So let's talk about these three because these are the three that are most people will probably use. So MP4, by far probably the most popular. Multi-track audio is available, but the problem with MP4 is if you get a corrupted recording, say your computer crashes or whatever during the record, you will lose all that data you recorded. Okay, that's a big downfall of MP4. MOV, I think it's the same thing. I think you can't, once if you crash or whatever, I think MOV, all that data is lost. The great thing about MOV is it allows alpha transparencies where MP4 does not. MKV is good if you are recording and something happens where your file's corrupted or your recorder gets corrupted. The data you already recorded is still there and available and you can use it. The problem with this is that most of your recording websites, video websites, record software do not recognize MKV files. You have to remux this, so it adds more time to your workflow. So that's just kind of the options you need to weigh. Personally, I like MP4. So multi-track audio is now available in Streamlabs OBS, so you can select up to 6 tracks of audio, and this is based off of what you have right here in your mixer. These are the sources that you can send to each of these audio tracks, which is nice. And you can do that. You can actually designate which ones you want to go to where in this area here. So right now I've got my mic going to track 1. I've got this media source file of Battlefield 5 I'm playing just for looks, just to give y'all something extra to look at. It's going to track 2. Okay. And then all these I haven't even messed with, but anyway, so that's this is how you would set it up. If you wanted all of these sources, you would select an individual track and turn all the other ones off. Okay. Now, here's what I recommend if you're using gameplay audio. Okay. Gameplay audio and NDI. NDI slaves to track number 1. So that would almost, you would need to deem that as your gameplay track if you were using that. For everything else, for like if you're capturing, gameplay or whatnot, then that would just be desktop audio, whatnot. So anyway, just keep that in mind for you NDI users in your dual PC setup. Track 1 will need to be your gameplay, and then 2 could be mic, whatever. Okay. All right. So for recording, we're going to talk about X264 software encoding using your CPU and NVENC hardware encoding using your GPU's built-in encoder. We're not going to talk about the old NVENC because most people should be able to use new NVENC. It's going to help everybody out and it's going to look better for everybody. All right, so first we'll talk to X264. Okay, here you have rescale output. I don't recommend you using that in recording. If you need to rescale output, I recommend you doing it here inside of the video settings, okay, where you can set your base canvas and then downscale to whatever you need. This would apply to, like, say you were using 4K, but you wanted to downscale it to 1080p, you could use that. Otherwise, I wouldn't use rescale output. I would only use it if you were doing streaming and you were recording at the same time and you wanted to downscale your stream, then you would do it from inside the streaming tab. All right. So custom muxer settings, I don't use any custom muxer settings personally. I just use what is available here inside of OBS. So we have a couple options here. Let's talk about CBR first. So CBR is constant bit rate. You're going to set a bit rate and the encoder is going to try to maintain that bit rate with as much as possible. Now there will be some variance, but for the most part it will maintain this bit rate. The problem with that is you have to set a high bit rate to make sure that high movement video looks good. It doesn't get pixelated with all the encoding that has to go on for all these new frames. Okay, so you got to set a high bit rate. The downfall with that is it increases the file sizes significantly. Okay, so that's what you need to think about. So here, if you were going to use CBR at a minimum, I would recommend a 30,000. You could go up to 60,000 or 50,000, 60,000. There's tons of videos out there that are, say, 30. There's some that say 60,000. I've done 30,000. I've done 60,000. They're really hard to tell the difference. I think 60,000 is probably overkill. All right. The problem with X264 for single PC streaming gaming, okay, is this going to put a significant load on your processor and you could hurt your gameplay performance. So really would recommend X264 only if you have a 2 PC setup or you're using a PC to record console, okay. But remember, file size is going to be huge. The other one that I would recommend, I'm not even going to talk about ABR. ABR is average bit rate. It's a version of variable bit rate, but nobody in the world even recommends you use this. You go to all the professional video websites, all the websites that talk about all these different rate controls, and all of them say ABR is not even an option for archiving video, which is recording video for future purposes. VBR, most people... If you have VBR tweaked properly, you should be able to get a pretty good quality, but in all of my testing, variable bit rate control, even using a higher bit rate, when you have certain quick movements, there's just pixelation there. Here you have the option to set a bit rate, and you can also set a rate factor, which should give you generally good video. But like I said, in my testing, all the options available, this has always produced the worst results. So I don't even recommend using VBR for encoding. Okay, I would recommend either CBR or CRF. Okay, so CRF here allows you, this is constant rate factor. You can set a quality setting. It goes from 0 to 51. 51 is max compression, 0 is lossless or no compression. 15 is about as low as I would go, because once you get below 15, you really don't see any difference in video quality, but you see a huge difference in file size. So 15 here allows you to maintain a quality where if you have low movement in your game or whatever you're recording, it will not need to encode those frames, because a lot of the stuff in the frames are the same. So it'll lower the bit rate to, encode only what it needs to encode. And when it moves back up, the video starts moving around and you have faster moving again, it'll then increase the bit rate to maintain the quality that you set. So that's why I personally like CRF. A lot of people are now recommending this. I was recommending this 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when everybody was saying either VBR or CBR, and now we're seeing more people come around to using CRF. Even NVIDIA now recommends using we'll call it it's CRF and CQP. CQP we'll talk about here in a minute. It's in the NVENC settings, but essentially they're the same thing, same effect. Even NVIDIA is now recommending you setting a quality setting instead of using CBR or VBR. So anyway, so this is why I recommend it. It works really well, and it's pretty much a set and forget kind of setting. Here, keyframes, keyframe intervals. You can set a keyframe. For streaming, you would normally do this instead of leaving it in auto. But for auto or for recording, auto is recommended. I definitely would leave it there. Okay, CPU preset. Of course, we got ultra fast down to placebo. Ultra fast would give you the worst video quality. I don't even recommend you use this unless you absolutely have no other option. But most people should be able to start out at very fast, and then based on your CPU performance, and especially this, I'm talking specifically to you PC gamers out there that have a PC using gaming and streaming at the same time, where you're using the same CPU. Start out at very fast, see what you have, see if you're happy with the quality of your video. If you can increase it to faster or fast, then do so, but just be aware that you're risking performance with your game. So definitely step this up if you can. I would recommend nobody, even dual PC streamers and recorders, don't even go below medium. Medium, once you get to medium, the returns diminish at this point, and all you're doing again is just increasing your file size basically. So medium may be slow at the most, but medium will be great for most people, okay, if you can handle it. All right, this would be definitely more for dual PCs, gamer, streamer people. Okay, so I recommend personally fast. That's where I set it at because it's a good balance between quality and file size. All right, profile here. So profile is kind of crazy. So you have H.264 profiles. All right, baseline, main, and high. And then you'll see like some say high 10. Okay. So think of a profile. Typically, a profile is a level of complexity that is required to encode or decode. The higher the complexity, the more CPU power is needed to do the work essentially. So high is going to give you the most CPU load, but I would recommend you using this because the CPU load compared to main isn't that significant. Okay, so definitely go with high because it's going to give you better looking video. All right. Tune, most people leave this at 0, at none. I don't mess with it. And then you have some specific X264 commands that you can set here. Again, for recording, I don't mess with this. I only do this in streaming where I set B frames, specific B frames. All right, so that's X264. So let's go into now hardware NVENC new. Okay, this is a new option as of February of this year. It came out in OBS. They've restructured how NVENC is processed and encoded and how it handles frames and storage, that sort of thing. Anyway, the new NVENC is a lot more efficient, and it gives you a lot better video quality compared to the old NVENC, especially at lower bit rates, which is really nice for streaming. But for recording, it is also very nice. You have a lot of the same settings here. You got VBR, CBR, CQP. We talked about it being very similar to CRF, and in terms of the effect, it is. Okay, so what CQP is, constant quantizer parameters. All right, so quantization, what they're doing is they're basically this format looks at each macro block in these videos, and then it determines the amount of compression it needs based on the quality setting that you set. Okay, the lower the setting, the less compression. The higher the setting, the more compression. So if you set a 51, I told you is max. 0 is the least amount of compression. So if you were to set this at say 15 compared to a 23, the 15 would give you less compression. But in terms of the effect, I set this thing to 15 just like I'd do if I was using CRF and 264. It's a set and forget. It uses the bit rate it needs to maintain this quality setting, okay, which is nice. All right. We'll go ahead and skip the rest of these because they're basically the same as what we've already talked about at X264. Same rule applies. Keyframe interval, again, we'll leave this in auto and let the encoder decide what it needs. Okay, preset's a little different. Okay, so you've seen a lot of guys out there recommend you doing low latency quality. Now it's changed. Okay, we have a new option here, max quality, and this is what you should select. This is what NVIDIA now recommends for recording. Okay, that will give you the best quality video, trust me. All right, profile, again, we just talked about this earlier. Again, recommend high. This is something that NVIDIA also recommends. Now, two new options here. We got look ahead and we have psycho visual tuning. All right, so look ahead. All look ahead is, and let's talk about this, is what it does is it allows the encoder to dynamically select the number of B frames it needs, and this is between 0 and the number of B frames that you specify. B frames are great because they increase image quality, but they consume a lot of your available bit rate. So they reduce the quality on high motion content. Look ahead enables the best of both worlds, but struggles with high motion content as it needs to change too often. And this is something that is CUDA accelerated. So if you're having issues while you have this turned on, you see a lot of GPU load, you can turn this off to help reduce that. Okay. But for streaming, they do not recommend look ahead, but for recording, they do. Okay. That's good to know. Now, psychovisual tuning, this is what really makes everything better. Okay. This is what really helps the new NVENC. Okay. So psychovisual tuning enables the rate distortion optimization in the NVIDIA encoder. And this greatly optimizes the way that you use bitrate, and it overall improves the image quality on movement. Okay, so for recording, NVIDIA recommends both of these be enabled. Okay, you have an option here. If you're running an SLI configuration, you can choose which GPU you want. I doubt most people run SLI anymore, but if you do that, have that option, or you run multiple GPUs, which is possible, you can select the GPU that you want to encode. Okay, and that could help in single PC builds. Max B frames here. Okay, the max you can set is 4, and I would rate, you could do that. NVIDIA does recommend leaving max B frames to 2, and this will kind to eliminate that issue with high motion causing pixelation when it's using more B frames than it needs. So that's why I recommend leaving it here at 2, but it does go up to 4. So if you're using a low motion game, something like, I'd say Hearthstone, whatever it's called, then you can increase these B frames to 4. But for a game like Battlefield 5, like I'm playing here, leave it at 2. All right. So that's really the basic recording in a nutshell. It's very simple, very easy to do. For your audio, I usually just leave this at default at 160 bit rate. If you want higher quality, you can increase this. Just remember, this is also going to increase your file size, not by a super huge amount, but compared to video, but it does increase the overall file size. All right. But that's really the recording in a nutshell. Super easy to do, and the new NVENC I would probably recommend over X264 for most people. The new NVENC really does give you a nice quality video now, and you don't need as much bit rate, and you just use the CQP mode there to set the quality setting, and boom, you're ready to go. And it does produce nice quality video. Everybody, I hope the video helped you out. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. It was pretty lengthy. There's a lot to talk about in those settings, but I think you need to be able to know what they do so that you can weigh the options for setting them up for your own specific purposes, as they each have their own positives and negatives. So anyway, if this video did help you out, make sure you comment below. I'd love to hear how you got it set up and how it did for you. And also, please hit that like, subscribe, hit the bell so you'll know when I have another video that goes live, and please share it with your friends. Yeah, if they're learning how to stream, they're learning how to record, I think this would be a great help to them. And the channel in general would. There's a lot of information there for new streamers. So anyway, thank you everybody for taking the time again. I do appreciate it. Be safe out there. Check me out on social media at TFS_pun on Twitter, or at Frugal_streamer for the news side of the TFS stuff. And you can hit me up on Mixer at mixer.com/TFS_pun. Anyway, thank you guys. Be good. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.